can you, so can you. For too long about the mistakes, while I resent, I learned to hate. Forgot your names. Fear the struggle to follow on. Need to focus to prove you're wrong. I'm not wrong. I know I'm holding on to this, holding on. I know I'm holding on to this, holding on. Don't let me repeat it. Don't let me repeat it. I know I'm holding on to this, holding on, holding on, holding on, holding on, holding on, holding on.
Watching it end again and again. I feel it in waves, you follow me. Drifting to places I should leave. So close to the edge of something so perfect. We were too scared to take the leap. I'm missing the way we used to be. Let me go. Left me in this mess, I'm falling.
to use it. And more important thing, it has some value for you. For example, banana will get you feed if you are hungry. So if you are designing the product or website or mobile application or whatever, you actually need to design for the stupidest user, for the users who are not like power users and that they know how all the applications works, but you need to focus more on delivering value to the user experience for them. But usually what we do as developers, we usually don't care about that part. So we have like slow applications, very bad user experience, and we put a bunch of the features they will never need or they will never use. If you think like user experience is some kind of the joke, please just look at these numbers. So there is many zeros. I don't even know how to read this number, but it's like trillions of dollars that will be lost there, because of the bad user experience. So it's not something that we should do like because it's important for the users. It's also important because many businesses, because of the bad user experiences, are losing the money, bunch of money. So let's talk first about users. Let's start from that ground zero point and let's see who are the users. Actually, the users are, the better word will be who are our clients, who they are. So basically the clients are the people who are actually paying to use some software that we are producing. That's really obvious. And they are actually paying for everything that we have in our industry, like salaries, ping pong tables, I don't know, PlayStations and everything else. But most important thing, they are paying the software that is actually paying for our salaries, and then we are spending the money for everyday life. But we don't, the users are, the clients are not some unknown persons. Okay, maybe we don't know their name. Usually we know that also, but we know like how which gender they are, how old they are, and actually we know where they live. So we know a bunch of informations about our users, and we can use that informations to provide better user experience for our users. That's just the starting point. So I want everyone to be clear that we can get a lot of information on our users. Even now with GDPR and everything else, we still have a bunch of informations, and we can provide some additional values based on that information. Second thing is, what is the user interface? If you ask many developers what is the user interface, mostly developers will answer it is like design of the application. But actually, user interface is much bigger. User interface is everything that includes it's everything that we are using to interact with something. So it can be display screen, it can be keyboard, it can be mouse, it can be anything. The key when you are using to open the door, it's actually also the user interface. For our users in our world, in software development, the most important user interface is actually the mobile phone. So that is the device that we do like, we are using like in average 3 to 4 hours per day. We are doing more than 100 interactions per day with the mobile phone. And some not even fun facts, more like sad facts, is that more people has mobile phones than electricity or running water. That is not something that we should be proud of as humankind, but still, like, that's the fact. More people has mobile phones than electricity. In 2016, we started to search more from the mobile phones than from the desktop devices. And in 2018, actually in 2017, we served first time we served more data to the mobile devices than to the desktop devices. But still, if we compare how we are using our smart devices like tablet and smartphones, we are spending more time using the applications instead of websites. Why? Even the web has bigger reach. The reason is that the web user experience is actually broken. We have really slow, really like really big in the size of megabytes, kilobytes, really big websites, and that is something that our users like trying to avoid, and they want to use smooth, nice looking and very fast applications. So what is actually that user experience? So basically, user experience is a process of creating products that provide meaningful and relevant experience to the users. But this is not just the design. It includes much bigger aspect. It includes branding, design, usability, and functionality. So one thing should be clear from the beginning, that actually user interface and user experience is not the same thing. So for example, you can have, as you can see on a picture, you can have amazingly nice looking user interface, but still user experience can be totally wrong. and this will not attract your users. It will maybe, like for example, users will download the application, they will try to use it, it will be useless for them, and then they will just stop using that. This is actually the graph which kind of inspired. This is from the book of Jack Atwood, the co-founder of Stack Overflow. You will see the book a little bit later, but this is the graph where I start more thinking. I read that book like 4 or 5 years ago, and I start thinking more about that. So basically, if you don't have like good user experience or nice looking user interface, but actually if you don't have user experience, and if you are like putting your users, which are like this small mouse here on electrical grid, to get the reward, like to start using your application, you will need to have really big reward to force them to use that application. So for some older people here, if you remember Napster or ICQ, they had that big cheese, part of the cheese. But today there is like, today's ICQ with terrible user experience cannot succeed because we have some other solutions like WhatsApp or so ever, which has much better user experience and it's easier to use. And trust me, you will never actually have enough big part of the reward. You will never have big part of the cheese. So basically, you should invest more time in building great user experience for your users if you want them to use that. So this is actually from the book, or from the Coding Horror blog. I assume that most of you heard about that. So this is really strong statement. Jeff Atwood say that he doesn't care about how many kick-ass visual architecture diagrams you have. From the user's point of view, if you don't have user interface, you don't have anything. And he said, like, he knows that user experience is hard, but you need to build impressive UI if you want to be taken seriously. And this is like really strong statement, and it's actually true. For your users, they don't care, do you use like API platform, do you use Zen framework, .NET framework, some JavaScript framework, Node.js or whatsoever. If you don't have like really good user interface, they actually don't care. They don't see what is on the backside. So you need to give them value, and you need to give them software that is quite easy to use. So this is the book that I mentioned in the beginning. It's Effective Programming. It's more than writing the code. And there is an entire chapter about why you should invest in user interface. And there is a lot of things how they invested in user interface in building Stack Overflow. So I'm suggesting you to read this book. Also, the creator of the Ruby said something similar. So if you have a good interface on your system and the budget, money, and time, you can work on your system. But if you don't have like good interface, you actually don't have anything. So in general, if your system has a bad interface, you basically have nothing. It won't matter if it is work of the highest craftsmanship of the inside, but for your users, it's worthless. So yeah, to conclude once again, your UI is actually your application. When we are talking about our customers, about our users, if you are talking of developers, it's a different perspective. But I think everything that we are building for our customers, for our users. So all of our work should be user-centric, actually. This is the question I usually ask. If you have everything the best, like there is one situation where nothing can help you, and that is if your application of software doesn't have any purpose or doesn't solving any problem. So your application, your software should solve some problem, should be easy to use, and then you will give like huge value to your customers. And second thing, which is usually what's the problem in software development, is that like we have designers and then we have developers. Usually they are separated in different teams, and they are like working in a way together that designer do some design at the beginning, then he delivers the designs, and then he goes to some other projects and doing consulting for other clients, and then developers starts to building separately from design. So in this situation, we have a problem that they are not they are part of the same process, but in general, their work is separated because they are doing in different phases of the project. So this should be solved in a way that we are not looking at designers or developers like as a different part of the team. They should be the same team, and they should work to entire project, to entire process together to deliver better software, better user experience to the customers. They need to have the same goal actually, and that is to build as better software, as better application as possible. So the suggestion here how they can work together is actually to start doing user experience, user interface first development. This includes a lot of workshops with the clients, with entire team, with designers and developers together. And this includes actually solving first the user experience. So the first problem that why to use user experience, user interface first, developers are used to solve problems in terminal, in console, in a code. Second, designers usually think that they are most relevant person for design based on their previous experience. But actually, if you are working together, I'm not saying that developers should design or designers should code. No, that's definitely no. But they can define the problem together. Then designer can define user experience person, or designer can define in their regular way as they are doing how to build the best user experience. But then they can be on the same page. Everyone will understand in the end what they need to build, and clients will understand what they will actually get as the end results. So what actually give us if you are doing what is the giveaway if you are doing in this type of collaboration is that first we understand the problem. And it's much easier to understand, as I already said, for the client, for the team, for the stakeholders, what we are actually building. We can solve some issues before even we start developing. We can test before we start developing. When I say testing, we can use these prototypes, wireframes, call it whatever, and we can test that on the users. So we can gather valuable information about how our users are using that. Is every premises that we set up, is it true or it is failed? And we will save a bunch of the money, and then end result will be much better. So we go to the next statements actually, which means that user experience experts pre-assume the things. So actually we need to test, and user experience experts should never pre-assume the things. That's fundamentally wrong if they are pre-assuming something. We need to test that, and we need to confirm that actually wireframes or user experience that we build will work for our users. If not, we need to change that. Similar as in software development, we will try to implement something. If it is not working, we will try to build it in another way. Also, usually what happens is if we are having the stakeholders in a meeting room or some high pay manager, we usually have the HIPPO, which is the highest paid person opinion, which is not good also. We have numbers, we have data, we can test it on the users, and we should use that data, not some opinions. Again, we should not think, we should confirm about that. And there is a bunch of tools, even if you don't have like huge budget for testing. I don't know how you will see the video on a screen, but for a few bucks, like you can use some tools. For example, the Crazy Egg is what you see, and you will get a bunch of information how your site is used, where users are clicking, how they are scrolling to your websites, how they are acting. You can get the videos, you can get the stats, you can get whatever you want. So for example, if you are releasing the new website for example, you want to test it for a week, you can use this kind of the software, and for very low amount of money, you will get very valuable information. And there is like really nice statement, like don't think too much. You will actually create the problem that wasn't there in the first place. So try to focus more on delivering the value and resolving the current issues that you have the problems for the user. So again, the question, if I ask you like, do you work on any website or web application at the moment? Probably most of you will answer yes. But if I ask you the second question, like on which one, left on the right, I will probably guess like in 80%. This is the templates on like more than 70% of the websites today. Like maybe the elements will be on a different place, or we will have different type of the sliders, but this is how the web looks today. It's actually a little bit boring and predictable. And there is quite good reason why we are using all the same patterns in web design. First, good design is very hard. It's not easy thing. Second thing, good user experience, it's even harder. And second thing, building a good user experience as user interface is expensive process. It's not easy process, and it's also expensive process. So we actually end up to use some well-known patterns. this we can draw a parallel line to the development. If we have some patterns that are working really well, we will reuse them. So that's actually what's happening also in design, in web applications and mobile applications. But in general, what's the issue with this? It's very hard to remember some really good websites. So for example, ask yourself, like, what's the one really, really good website that you visit this week and that you really remember that? For example, I visit today, I visit the Airbnb, and they have new, very nice web design. And that's like, for me, it's a memorable because I visited today. They have really nice design. It looks nice with big pictures. It's really modern. It's very fast website. So I think they are getting back on a track where they were like few years ago, and then at some point they were starting producing like slow features, new features, bunch of new features, without focusing, I think, on clear goal, delivering the value, which they are doing very nice at the moment. So usually the design process starts in this way. You get the new project, you need to start working on that, and then you have all the fancy ideas, you have all the crazy ideas, you will implement everything, it will be the best ever. But in the end, like, it ends up like on the last image, it's like similar regular house as every other house. So if you are talking about good design, it should be a collection of tiny details. Like, it should be personal, it should like it should uh, it should make some emotions in you when you are watching that design. So for example, this is regular login form, and like it's email and it's a password. Usually it's a boring form, but with this little animation, as you can see, this form is like memorable. It's a different. It will bring a smile on your face. Probably you will remember this form. Also, if we talk about Mailchimp website, you can see that this website is built on an exact a template I showed you like few slides ago, but with this font, with these illustrations and everything, they did amazing work. So this is very nice looking, very memorable websites, and probably it has great effect on their business, increasing the revenue and profit and everything else. Also, this is our website. So if you look on the bottom right thing, you will see the cookie policy. So the cookie policy has a story behind it, and the story is this. This is very famous cookies in Croatia. So we actually used that cookies to put it on our website, and the result was amazing. We got like, I don't know, 100 emails probably, where people like saying, this was amazing, like, your cookie policy is amazing. And of course they all accepted that, but still, like, we use the emotions here. We know that this is, all the people in Croatia are literally crazy about this cookie, and it's like the product that we are proud of in Croatia. So the result was actually that we made that cookie policy personal. Also, in our hiring page, what we did, we use our real persons from the company and some internal jokes. So if you read the statement behind every person in a company, you will see that it's about music, it's about playing guitar, about project management and other things. Also in this form, we tried to make it little fun. So there is again real person who is like communicating with you. If you are doing good job on filling the form, they will approve you. If you are doing some mistakes and not filling the form properly, they will show it your hands like no. Also, what we a little bit steal it from the Medium is the beast thumb. So this is how we are saying like hi in our company. Like usually, if you go to the company in the morning, you will say hi in this way to the person you meet on a hallway. Even our Slack, if you say, this means in Croatian language we call that besa. So fist pump is a besa in Croatian language. So if you say besa on our Slack, even the Slack bot will respond with the one. So we did just that small thing we implemented in our blog. So as you have thumbs up or applaud in a Medium, we use that trick to build it on our blog post. So we put part of our culture of the company, we put it in our blog. The web design of the website is still in a pattern that I show you. This is, for example, regular blog. There is nothing about that. It should be clean. It should be easy readable with nice pictures and everything. But this was like, we want to put some small details. Also, since this is the agency website, we need to have some dogs, obviously. So there is Aria, the dog. So yeah, we have it on the website. If you want to see more examples of this kind of the things on the websites, which are really amazing, search for this blog post on the Smashing magazine. It's bringing personality back to the web. There is a bunch of examples, and you will see how websites still can be very functional and can be very, very interesting. The web should not be boring as it is at the moment. Regarding the testing, so testing is, especially A/B testing, is amazing thing. But what we are usually doing with A/B testing is, even if you use Twitter or Facebook as example, they will move the navigation little bit left, little bit right, little bit up. They will change the color for one number or something like that. But usually they are testing the local maximums. And then when we are testing the local maximums, you will end up with the similar results. Again, we will have all the websites. So we need to think a little bit out of the box. We need actually to test how the changes that we are testing locally are affecting also the global way of our website. So there is legendary Pepsi challenge. So what they did, they tested the Pepsi against the Coca-Cola, but in small cups. So I think Pepsi has more amount of the sugar. It's more sweeter than Coca-Cola. So basically, if you take one cup of the Pepsi, the feeling of enjoying the Pepsi should be higher than Coca-Cola. So the Pepsi at that point was taking over the market of Coca-Cola. But then when you start like testing on half of the liter or bigger amount of Coca-Cola or the Pepsi, again, the Coca-Cola was much better. So this is the example of testing the local and global maximum. Also, the good example of that is Booking. We all probably use Booking at least once in our life. So they have a bunch of these things that they found out about that in A/B testing. So if there is some urgent message, you will see that in a red. If there is something very good for you, it should be in a green. Then they have the color for errors, for mistakes and everything. But if you take, they are the masters of A/B testing, that there is no doubt about that, and they are doing like crazy job. But if you compare this, if you take Booking in entirely watching, they actually destroy the website. That website is like, it's a pain in the ass when you need to go there and book some accommodation for your travel. It's much easier to go to Airbnb and book it. It's clean design, it's much easier to use. So there is even the plugin in a Chrome written by Sarah, which is like cleaning up the booking so it will be useful again. So it will remove all the unnecessary information. You will see the price, you will see how much it will cost, and can you book it or not. So they end up here because that increased their sales, obviously, but still, when you look at it globally, it's not something that we can say it's like, this is very nice looking websites and we should all build it like that. So sometimes even that test sales go in that way, we will need to break, not to need, we should try to break rules sometimes. So if I show you this website, if, for example, some of your designers show this to you, you will say like, you did a bunch of the mistakes, this is not like really good design and everything else, but actually this is very interesting website. It looks nice, it has a really good user experience, and it's perfect fit for the museum website as it is. So this is like not traditional website. It breaks so many rules if you compare it to traditional web designs, but still it's memorable and it's fast, it works well, it's optimized for the mobile phones, so everything is there. Also, what you need to have in mind when you are building some new features, that users are not reading instructions, same as developers are not reading documentation, and then they are spending double or triple of time to learn how to do something. So users are like half blind when they are open something. They are actually expecting to be to fully understand how to use the website. That's also one of the reasons why we are using the existing patterns. So this is the first version of Stack Overflow. So on the right side, they had the perfect description, the documentation, how to use the markdown language. Nobody used that. Nobody read that. So every second question almost on the Stack Overflow was how to use the styling of the text, because this is what the users see. They see only the focus, only the middle. This ends up in a way they put that on the top as a pop-up, and then, of course, everyone was forced to read it. Also, the performance. That is very important thing, and that is probably the key argument which you can say to any developer, backend developer especially, if they say to you, the user experience is not our job, and then they are like having the slowest APIs ever. Like, it is. Performance is part of the user experience, and as developer, you should care about that. You should care at the first place about your customers, and then second thing, at least about performance, if you are talking especially of web developers. So if it takes more than 3 seconds to load the websites, more than half of your users will abandon your websites. And there is fact, on a 4G, average time is 14 seconds. On 3G, it's 19 seconds. And on TG, where 60% of mobile internet is still using 2G, it's about 30 seconds. So we are talking about huge numbers. And if you think 3 seconds is a big number, try to compare these two screens. So on the right side, we have traditional website, which is like 3 seconds. And on the left side, we have below 1 second, 0.9. When you compare that, this 3 seconds seems like eternity, like forever. One more thing, which is like, again, sad fun fact about the internet. I assume you all remember this game, or at least newer version, but this is Doom 2. So basically this game had, I don't know how many levels, but include also the multiplayer game. And it was packed in approximately 2.7 megabytes. Today, average size of the website is almost 3.5 megabytes. And one of the biggest reasons why this is happening is because we don't care about user experience, we care more about developers' experience. So we will take a bunch of things that we don't need actually to make our lives easier, and then we will build that in a package as a website. And usually we will end up with a with a dramatically big websites, even static ones that are serving like one title and one image. So Jake Archibald said, like, it seems that web community has decided that developer experience dwarfs user experience, and I'm not sure what to think about that. That was also one of the reasons for this talk. Actually, we need to build like conscious about user experience that should be more important than developers' experience. What's the message for developers? Learn about your stack. Maybe you don't need anything. Maybe if you are building, I will take some stupid example, but if you are building something with the Symfony, you don't need to put for example, you don't need to put API platform inside it if you are not going to use it. Or you don't need to put entire API platform inside your bundle if you will have 1 or 2 AJAX calls for your application. So learn about your packages, learn what is inside. Sometimes, for example, or security. You don't need an entire Symfony security if you just need to block some API, for example, or something like that. So learn about your stack. Try to dig deeper inside your stack. Usually, it's not framework who is slow. It's more the developers who are building this entire stack, and then they are building the really slow stack. How to decide what to build? So basically, this is the easiest graph. This is the effort by organization graph. So if there is high user value and there is low effort for your organization, that's something that you need to build. You must build that. But if there is high effort for organization, low user value, you can leave it for later. Probably you don't need even to build it. But if you have high user value, high effort, then maybe you should build it. Same if your effort is low, but the low is value for the user. So basically, anything that brings user value should be your priority. So for example, this is one feature that is brilliant. Literally, it's brilliant. So you go to the ASOS website, you enter your measurements, and you get perfect suggestions what size of the clothes you should buy. So basically, if you go to most of the e-commerce solutions, you need to go there, then you need to read about sizes, and then you need to pick something. Usually you will pick it wrong, and then you will need to return the shipment and everything else. Here, this works perfectly. And I'm sure this is not the feature that requires too much effort to build, or some basic version of this can be built very fast, and this gives amazing value to your customers. I'm sure that this feature is the reason why ASOS has like 5 to 10% increase in the sales, because it's much easier to decide on a size. You're just going around and picking the clothes that you like. Also, the thing that you should care about is accessibility. So usually someone will say the clients who are using my application, they don't have accessibility. That's the accessibility problems. That's a reason because they are not understand what they are talking about. There is approximately 50% of the world's population with some form of disability. So between 110 million and 190 million adults have some significant difficulties in functioning. So we are talking about your customers, we are talking about your users, because for sure at least one of your customers has some disability problem. Implementing some basic disability features on websites today, it's not hard thing. So have that in mind, implement that. There is like really clean cheat sheet about that. Just follow that and you did already amazing work. For example, in United States, there is already a rule where you need to implement features for humans with disabilities. Also, try to build things for the future, not for today, not for yesterday. Actually, whatever we are building based on our experience. So that means that we are building for the future. What we need to try to figure out what are the patterns in the future. You can look at a small kid. So for example, I have 4-year-old kid. When she was younger, she was in front of the TV, tried to touch things, tried to move it and everything else, because she didn't, for her, touch was something very natural. That's her primary interface. And if we are watching at the kids, we can design it for today, for example. They are probably one step in front of us. But when I first gave the mouse or keyboard in her hands, it was like, what's this about? So basically, and for not maybe all the people who are watching this, but I was the generation that was not that learned how to use the mobile phones and how to use the finger gestures to manipulate our devices. From my point of view, what is happening in the future and what will be very important is the voice. That will increase the complexity in the software that we are building, but more and more people, including myself, we are using some kind of voice assistant. It can be Siri, it can be Google Assistant, whatever, but we are starting to use that more and more. For me, it's very easy to tell to Siri to book some time in my calendar for some meeting, and it will be automatically send email to person that I want to meet with and everything else. So it's quite easy to use. And last thing I want to talk about is the context. So context is very important. So if we have like two same designs but different context, one design can be amazingly good and one design can be a total mistake. So for example, if we take a look on this design, this looks like literally like a joke. It's like some weird cartoon. And if you say like to some 5-star hotel, this is a good website for you, for example, some Hilton hotel, it is total mistake. But this is the hostel in Amsterdam and Lisbon. And the main goal, if you want to stay in this hostel, it's you want to go party. You want to have nice time with the people who are there with the same reason. And when you fit this in that context, this is very good design. Also, some application that we built. At the first, this is like very simple design. Maybe the colors and the font is very weird to you, and that is actually the goal of this application. This is application that helps people with disabilities in reading, with dyslexia primary, and this font is actually built for them. So entire application is built around that font to help people who have problems with reading disabilities. And in that context, this is amazing application. First thing, it gives like enormous value to the customers, to the users, because they can finally read without any distraction, and it's a simple design for them. Also, this is not the mistake in a stream. It's a black screen. This is the interface for blind people. So basically, we cannot design anything for them. And this is, I don't know how it will be possible to stream the video through the streaming and everything else. I will try, and then I can share it later, how actually we can build amazingly, how we can build perfect application for that kind of the people. And this is the video about that.
You might wonder how blind people deal with everyday challenges. Well, normally the answer is simple. We're not that different from you. We play music. We go to school. We go to work. You get the picture. But sometimes the simplest things can be difficult, and we need a pair of eyes.
Connect to.
First available number.
That's where you come in.
Establishing video connection.
Through your smartphone, Be My Eyes connects the blind with sighted people through a live video connection. Simply choose if you need help or want to help by the click of a button.
That's a nice picture of you and your family, Caroline. Is it well present? Yes, it's a photo from my parents.
You can help just by installing the Be My Eyes app,
Printed image.
and we'll notify you when someone needs your help. And if you're in the middle of something, don't worry. Someone else will step in. So, would you care to be my eyes?
So as I told you, the interface of this application is totally black, but can you even imagine how big value this adds to the people? And that actually should be the primary goal of technology. It should be connecting people through the emotions and actually improving our lives. And I hope everyone that is building software will at least at some point of professional career, private life, will be able and will help people improving their lives with the knowledge that we have today. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm open for them.
So thank you, Antonio. We will check in a few seconds if there are any questions.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
So people are faking you, but no questions for the moment.
Okay.
It was very instructive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. And I will be in the chat probably because I will listen to Łukasz talk. So if someone has a question, you can ping me on Twitter or in the comments.
Sure.
Thank you once
With
again
pleasure.
for inviting me. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Łukasz Chruściel, and for several months already, actually about 2 months, together with my colleagues from work from Sylius, we are working on the integration with API platform. And this is why I came here tonight to talk to you a little bit more about it. Before I go to my story, let's just spend a few seconds and talk about Sylius. So for all of you that know already what Sylius is, it won't be any surprise, but for all of you that never heard of it or just never checked it, it's the platform, e-commerce platform that we try to solve most common e-commerce problems for the developers, but it's meant to be highly customizable for developers. So the main goal for the platform is to deliver you a software that will be enough to set up the store, but it will allow you to build whatever you want on the top of it. It's meant to be customized by end users and deliver the value that will not be like typical store. Before I will jump to the story itself, let's just check what happened in the previous episode. For those that are new to Sylius, the story may be quite new, so let's just recap what we developed recently. First of all, for many years, we had an admin API in Sylius. Before we even we consider a platform, it was like a few years, like 5-6 years ago. Sylius as the e-commerce platform has some unified approach to handling the request, mostly based on HTML websites. However, the same controllers, thanks to Postgres, could be also handled through the same controller, through the same service. And this led us to generating admin API, which were meant to integrate with external systems. However, as you can see, there was like a ton of information. So on the example here, you can see that there's this example of the cart where you have just relation to the item that contains another variant, and also additional information is here, like the channel consideration or the translation, things that may be strange for you and may be strange for the front-end developers as well. That's because we decide that we will expose a lot of data. We mostly expose data just as a part of the main response, and it was up to receiver to decide what data should be used. So the front-end app or just the client needs to be aware which channels should be used or which translation should be used for some synchronization or just exposing to the end client. As you can see, also we try to follow some standards, so it's pretty close to the HAL with some links to connected resources. However, there was too much data in one response. And also it was done this way because it wasn't that easy to override the serialization. Back in the days with the JMS serializer, it was quite hard to customize the endpoint itself. So it was close to the HAL specification. We tried to follow some standards. However, it was 2 variables and it wasn't that easy to customize. Also, this whole admin API was too much CRUD oriented. We're working with the CRUD a lot, and they're solving some part of our day-to-day work, and they're great for that. However, this is not the only approach and not the only way how we should look into software development. However, back in the days when the admin API was created, all of the endpoints were treated like a CRUD. Therefore, if you put some item to the cart, you were just creating an item there, and then it was to the consumer of the API to decide if he wants to create a new item as well, or rather, he would just change the amount of the previous item. Therefore, if you will just create 2 items, there will be 2 exact same items, where normally in the card logic, it would make much more sense to just merge it and just increase the quantity. But it was by design crafted this way. Unfortunately, it was quite hard to be used. And all these issues brought us to creation of the shop API. Another approach, which was pretty rest-ish with the implementation. So we moved a little bit further from the implementation itself to make it easier to use the endpoint. So a lot of data were simplified and easier to use to put on the website to consume by the mobile app. However, these changes made it incompatible with the admin API. and all the people that use admin API previously had to learn something new from the scratch. And the clients that were used for one app cannot be reused on the other one. Also, some other consideration needs to be done, or people had to learn a new stuff just to work with the new API in the first place. Another problem that we had with the shop API was the lack of feature parity. Some stuff work. People expected that all of the stuff that are exposed through regular shop are available on the shop API. That's pretty good assumption. Unfortunately, we didn't have resources to make it this way at the first place, and it actually was haunting us from day one. Also, it wasn't easy to determine which features are exactly there. Like there should different testing approach actually make it hard to cover it in 100% because we were using different tools for testing both of them. Also, some tools that people were used to use with the default Sylius implementation, admin API or the regular shop, were not useful in shop API, and that were some of the pitfalls of the usage. However, shop API comes also with the new architecture, with the command query separation, with this kind of exposing or consuming of the customer behavior, and it also play pretty well. From here, it's also important to note that admin API works perfectly for the purpose that it was designed to be synchronized with some external system where this amount of data is not that big issue, and actually all of this translation can be consumed at once. And shop API actually also made some bright sides. However, both the systems I told you already had some downfalls, and this brought us to consideration that we should improve both implementation. So from now, we decide that in the current years, it's more important to move into the direction that is closer to Symfony, and that's why we moved to the app platform, and we wanted to integrate Sylius with app platform. What do we want to achieve with that is for sure being closer to API standards. So moving back from the road that we went with shop API. Following the standards was always our main goal in the implementation of the shop, with the implementation of the code. So it was also important for us to follow PSR, Symfony best practices or Symfony recommendations. However, we slightly moved from this direction of the shop API, and it wasn't the best decision after all. Following the standards allows you to use for the usage of the libraries that are widely available, especially if we are talking about the protocol that should be understandable through the application that are not written in the same language. So even if it's only PHP and JavaScript, setting up some contract, and especially the standard that we will be following, make it easier to write some connectors between two systems. What is more, API platform right now makes us closer to the Symfony ecosystem. For many years, Postgres bundle was the main tool to create REST APIs. However, API platform right now provides much better tooling and much easier to use. It's supported directly from the people from the Symfony core team, and uses the same libraries in the much bigger extent that it was used for JMS Serializer or Postgres bundle. So integrating with the API platform is also important for us to be closer to the Symfony ecosystem itself. What is more, we want to achieve the unification of the API usage. Previously, shop API and admin API had two totally different endpoints, like the structures, the contracts were slightly different, and the user defined, as I told you previously, weren't compatible with themselves. And it's also quite annoying because there are like two different applications that need to be handled from now on. So the unification of this API will be something important for us. What is more, unification of API will help people to gather how it works from the day one. You will not have to learn both structures in the same time. Another thing that is pretty neat about API platform is that it's generating API documentation from the code. So from now on, we will not need to be worried about the documentation, because the documentation will just exposing what's configured there through API platform. It also will make it easier to consume Sylius API and also make it easier for developers to use it. However, to reach this point, let's see what are the main challenges from the Sylius perspective that we will need to face or that we faced already and had some answers. So first of all, the problems will be split to two categories. First one will be pretty short because it's not a problem that everyone is facing. It's the framework problem because the Sylius is shipped with a lot of entities that you can work with. So for sure you need an order entity or product to work with, and it needs to be easily overridden by you, so you can be able to easily add some fields or some data to it. Even if we provide a lot of possibilities to extend it, one of them is just to make an inheritance, just extend the data. And this should be also possible with this API platform exposure. Luckily, as we were following all the Symfony standards from day one, and API platform is doing the same, we're able to leverage the power of the Symfony ecosystem, the power of doctrine, and without too many problems, we can consume the same entities, even if both systems are playing around them or with their structures a little bit. So it appears that API platform and Sylius were pretty neat and without any problem when you're extending the entities. And same should be true for the serialization. However, this is also the field that we still need to make some research and development to ensure that developer experience is really nice here. The second part of the problems are project-related problems, and this may be more interesting for all of you that are using API platform into day-to-day work. Just before I will jump to some examples of problems that we solve, it's important to also mention that by default, we're choosing the standard for standardization of API was important for us, as I told you previously, and we choose to follow the REST standard and JSON-LD by default. This is the default configuration of API platform, which was also one of the reasons. What is more, REST is the solution that was developed for many years already, has some really neat tools like also Mercure or Vulkan, and also there's like a lot of standardization and a lot of support from the whole ecosystem. While GraphQL is also tempting, right now it's much less mature solution. There are still problems with caching and so on. So we thought that it would be better to choose REST and JSON-LD for the start, separate out of the box, and if one will try to use it in different way for API platform, he will be able to do it. It will just not be supported by the core by default. First time of problem that we encountered were user comments. So as I told you previously, the CRUD operations were pretty easily handled with the admin API. This is also true for admin for API platform, where it's not a problem to expose typical CRUD operation, even customization of the typical CRUD operation. So when you're updating data and you want to do some side effects, it's not a big deal. However, some kinds of the operation have some different structure and some different behavior. All of these types of problems are state machine transitions. If you ever used Symfony workflow, finite state machine, or Windows state machine, you may be aware that the concept of transition is more important there than the end result. However, with the CRUD operation, you usually have the state field, then you are setting it to some particular value, like you have something new or like order is new or placed, and you're just changing the state with CRUD operation. With state machine and workflows, it's not the case anymore. From now on, you're talking more about the transitions, about intentions, what do you want to do with particular items, which is not easily translatable for the regular CRUD operation. So as an example, when you have in Sylius a shipment, when you place an order, you have particular shipment that is ready to be shipped, so it's in the new state. Then when you are clicking the button or just making some API call with the intention that you want to ship it, it will change the state to the shipped. But it's more than just changing the one field on the database. Through this transition, some additional operation may happen, and they're just callbacks on the state machine itself. So it's important to be sure and precise what kind of transition on which graph you want to execute in particular moment, because each of them can have different side effects. That's why we are not able to directly just set state to shift through API platform, and we need something else. From now on, we move to something more like RPC calls. So we add verbs at the end of the path with the patch method, patch HTTP method. We are triggering some additional logic. And right now, if you just make this patch with ID of the proper shipment, you will just ship the content. The problem is even bigger when you're considering that in Sylius it is possible to make a state machine transition together with changes to some fields on the object itself. So here we're not only changing the state of the shipment, but we're also setting up the tracking code. And you can also, if you just like customize the object itself, you're able to expose the whole object with the one state machine transition. That's why it's a little bit tricky to do it with the typical data. We're considering to switching to put the transition itself into the body of the request, or more like a command operation with some additional words at the end. We will not have a ship as a verb at the end of the path that you will be triggered, but like something more like ship command or ship transition, and then making a post request, so making request. But this is something that we are doing research right now. If you have any consideration about that, or if you have your own experience, feel free to catch up on our Slack or discuss it with us on the issues on the main repository, because we would like to be as close as possible to the REST paradigm, where it shouldn't be done like this, but still we're looking for the best. Another problem that we need to solve is customer intention. Once again, we are moving to the problem of the CRUD and non-CRUD operation. And customer behavior over the cart in the shop is much better exposed with different approach than regular CRUD. When you're going to the shop, of course, we can say that you're creating a cart, you're updating a cart with particular items. But it's much easier to express the customer behavior when we'll be talking about his behavior. So we are picking up the cart, we are putting some items to the cart. Then we are processing with the checkout. So we are going through the addressing step, selecting shipment, selecting payment, rather than just updating the same object, even if it's true behind the hood. So this is something that we learned from Shop API already, that CQRS pattern is playing really neat in this area. So it also gives you some additional benefit, like you have only one type of the command that you can dispatch through the system, and there will be always one handler, one place in your application that will consume it, and it will always be consumed the same way. So from now on, it will not matter if you're just using API platform, command line tool, or whatever. The interpretation of your command of customer behavior will always be the same. Thanks to API platform, we have direct integration with Symfony Messenger. So it's as easy as putting one flag into the API resource, and then it will just directly dispatch to the Symfony Messenger. CTO looks like this one, and this is directly taken from the code. If you want to register a shop user in the shop in the Sylius, you just need to provide a few fields like first name, last name, email, password, and the phone number, where the phone number is not needed. And then it's just dispatched to the bus. And the configuration looks like this. There are like a few fields that you may right now reading on. The only important one from the CQRS and Messenger pattern are these two lines. So it's enough to say that Messenger true, and we don't want any output, and it will be consumed through the command bus. There's some additional configuration that if you're working with the API platform more, you are more familiar with probably. However, it's still the same problem as with the state machine transition when we have more like verbs in the names of the path. So we are not using only HTTP verbs, but we are extending with some our custom logic. And this is another place where we're still making some shortcuts from the RESTful paradigm. I want to be as close as possible. So probably we'll be doing something to come closer to the standard itself. However, we're still doing research of either the command or some structure in the body will be better to expose actions like this. Another issue that we are trying to solve with that we are facing right now is one endpoint for admin and the customers. For many years, we have this direct distinction that some part of API is for admin, some part of API is for users. However, and also both of the APIs had different structures and different bodies, as I told you previously. As we want to unify the usage of both of them, we wanted to also have one endpoint that can be consumed by administrators and the consumers of admin API. Some problems arise, and let's face the problems with authorization. Also, just for the sake of the clarity, I want to share with you that right now we are using JWT token for authorization of the customers because it was the easiest solution for now and it was enough for us. But let's also look what was not that good with our current implementation. So if you will dig into Sylius structure, you would know that admin and shop users are two totally different entities. They're stored in two different tables in the database. Therefore, either we need two different user providers in the security, or one provider that will look into two different repositories. But it means that what should be the order of the repositories? Where should we look first? Especially if you are able to create an admin user and the shop user with the same email. This ends up with just two different tasks that it will allow you to log in separately for the admin. So here you have some super simple endpoint with email and a password, and if you will just trigger this call, you will receive a token. If you put the prefix 0 and space and then token that will receive from this endpoint, you are able to consume the API as an admin user. Here's just a simple sample configuration. So as you can see, we are putting some kind of firewall directly to the path that is available there, and the custom provider with admin user. The rest of the configuration is not that important right now. And there's also a shop user endpoint that will allow you to do exactly the same, but from the shop user perspective. This allows us to specifically call that we want to use shop user provider in this particular endpoint, and we want to only authorize or just produce JWT tokens for the shop users. Nevertheless, even if we did the authorization endpoint, there's still problem that the rest of API needs some provider as well. And because the provider needs to be chained, or the provider can be only one and it can be chained, this is what we choose right now. So if you will call right now our API, you have specific endpoints for the shop and admin user. However, you can consume the same path despite which authorization you choose. Still, there is an edge case, the one that we still do not solve. So what will happen if you have account as an administrator and the shop user? Even if you log as an administrator and you will try to access the regular shop, there will be a problem because the chain provider will use a shop user provider, so the one from the shop, and you will give the shop user as the first one. So we choose this order just to be sure that that data leak will be there. However, it's still annoying because we are not covering the same behavior as it's possible with the default Sylius implementation, and therefore we're looking for the better solution. Perhaps OAuth with the scopes will be a much better solution here, because during the authorization we can exactly say for what scope do we want to look for, and based on this data we can look for a particular user. Another problem, another challenge that we have with Sylius is the channel-based, context-based data. So in the previous example, you could see that there was a bloat response with a lot of languages locales for the particular item, as well as their channels, which is a really important thing in Sylius, because when you're a shop user, you're always accessing the web through the channel on which there are a lot of configuration that will be important for you. But first, let's look into internationalization. So already the current state of our implementation is that for the product, we're returning you almost all of the translations that are there, especially from the admin perspective. but still it's not resolving our issue. If you are in the shop and the local context can determine the local for you, it will be filtered to only one local that is available. However, being inspired with Locastic approach to translations and digging up a little bit further, and also thanks to the Kevin advice, we are looking for JSON LD internal serialization support. So the internal serialization that's supported out of the box with the JSON LD standard, which will allow you to directly put data that are translated to the main object, and then in the context expose which fields are translated into particular local. It also has some additional benefits that you can, for example, expose more data for these locals and so on. If you're curious about it and want to read more, today there was published a longer research about this standard on our GitHub. So feel free to join us there or discuss how you like it, or if you have any consideration about this one as well. Second problem is channel-based data. So as I told you, one problem is the localization, when we need to just provide you proper local, proper keys for particular local. However, a lot of data is also channel-based. And for example, it's not the front-end consideration, which channel, which price should be exposed on the product. However, each product can have different prices for each channel, and it should also be handled on the backend side. So as the channel is the main concept for the Sylius, we need to know as soon as possible on the backend, and then serialize data based on this information. Therefore, it's true for the channel, it's true for the local, and also for the currencies. We're enhancing the serializer context with additional data like the channel, which allows us to determine or to specify more precisely what data should be exposed. So from now on, the product data can be aware of the channel. We can choose particular price. We can select only which products are visible for each channel, because this is another problem that each user, if they will be using different channels, they will have access to different products and different categories, or just different menu. And this channel serial context builder will help us to expose behavior closer to the main Sylius implementation. And moving forward, another problem, main problem was we are integrating a new infrastructure, a new layer of integration of interaction with the customer is the feature parity. When you're doing something like that, you can express that, okay, it's super easy to start, but where do you actually finish your work? We would prefer, at least we would prefer to expose as much as we can from the current behavior through API, but how to test it properly? Previously, we had the problem that one kind of tests were with Behat and second one with the PHP unit, and then there was some feature drift between them because some actions were available from API while there was available from the admin panel and other way around, and also they required some different data. That's why we decided that for the feature parity, we will use our Behat and BTT suite. For those of you that wasn't aware of these terms, BDD is behavior-driven development, and Behat is a tool that allows for pure BDD in PHP. We are using these tools extensively, so there are like thousands of scenarios that cover our main code base, and we want to cover the same scenarios with just API approach. So for example, here is one of the scenarios that are just taken from the Sylius repository. One important thing here is that there are no implementation details in the stories itself. So for many years, this story was only considered to be taken into account from the UI perspective, but right now we added also an API tag here. So right now this story will be interpreted twice. In both examples, we'll have the same background, so the same stuff needs to happen to the story to make it available for the customers to integrate or to consumers to interact with the application. Then with the UI tag, we'll consider just regular website and clicking on it and check if our behavior is correct, if we are fulfilling our expectations, just by clicking on the website and just making the operation there, like choosing the proper buttons and so on. Then we'll do exactly the same behavior. So we'll try to use this. We'll set up the same structure. So we'll fill database with the same data. But from now on, we'll try to make an API call, build a request, and call it just once, just from the different perspectives. So the same scenario and the same business opportunity, the same acceptance criteria, the same behavior is expected in the both contexts, just there is a different way of interacting with it. Right now, we have covered 25% of all admin features and 15% of all features. So for the last month or two, we were able to cover like about 15% of all of our features, but there was a few considerations that we had, and also it's not the only thing that we are doing at Sylius right now, but we are getting the speed. As you can see the numbers, the one question that drives is Sylius IP first, and of course it's not. We are still much more oriented to HTML web, but we are going there. Will Sylius be an API first solution? And this is another tricky question. It's one of the tempting solutions. However, for now, we want to move to the direction that API and traditional websites are both first-class citizens. That's why this feature parity is so important for us. So we can track which features are available where, and we'll try to minimize the gap between two interaction points. And going further with this approach, we can consider if Sylius will be an application first. Decoupled from the infrastructure, decoupled from the way how you can interact, and it will always behave the same way despite how you will interact with it. So maybe it will be voice interface, as Antonia mentioned in the previous presentation, maybe with some message queue, maybe it will be a platform or HTML-based website. We are also considering going the Sylius direction that all of this will still end up with the same behavior, with the same structure at the end. So closing slowly, I would like to tell you that right now, all the stuff that I described is available on the internet, so you can browse auto-generated IPA docs through IPA platform, particular on this address. So you can check how many endpoints are there, how easy it is to use them, what are the pitfalls of it, and so on. So help us with testing it, help us with spotting what we can improve. Another thing that I would like to say at the end is that we need you. So if you have any knowledge about the API platform, if you have any consideration about the API in e-commerce itself, or would you like to help us create the really modest and future-proof API, or just want to be part of the community that will bring a new standard or new quality in the e-commerce world, join us. There's like the already issue that is created to gather some endpoints that are not that hard from API platform point to consider. We are also offering our help with Behead if you will need it. So just help us to start, and we'll try to help you with the testing it. Or also, if you would like to take part into higher level consideration, catch us on the Slack, or just write with us on the issues itself. And that will be all from my side. Thank you very much. And let's see if there are any questions.
Lucas, can you hear me?
Hello, Cecile?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few questions. Do you plan to retire the API generated right now by Resource Bundle?
Can you repeat the question?
Do you plan to retire the API generated right now by Resource Bundle?
Okay. Do we want to retire API generated through the Resource Bundle? For now, both of the implementation are still available to use. We wanted to make sure to be clear that we are working on the new approach. However, some people may still be using it, and there are some websites that are using these two approaches already. Through our VC policy, we are not dumping it, so we will provide some support for it. And then we'll try to provide some migration path to the new approach. And before 2.0, we are not exactly, we cannot retire admin API because of the required compatibility promise. The shop API will be probably maintained for some time as well, especially that there are some bigger websites. However, we would like to provide migration paths so to move to the new approach as many users as possible.
Okay, is there any other questions? There is another one. Why new API and not V2 API? Why no semantic versioning for the API as well?
The new API was just the consideration at the beginning because we wanted to be clear what we're doing right now. The topic about V2 or new API is still open. New API is something that we probably would not like to stick with us for many years. So the question is why new API, not V2, and the answer is because it's not decided yet, and it will still will have a consideration about it. Probably you can also write some issue or catch with us. I can say that V2 is like tempting options and something that we'll consider and perhaps integrate in the main code base.
Okay. So we don't see any more questions. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everybody
for the opportunity. For some time, I may be available on the chat or just on the Sylius or Symfony Slack if you have any more questions to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.